when it comes to like slowing down, there's this like ego in us. And I think it's actually that we are not trained to be able to rest. So why do we even practice yoga? Asanas. Why do we practice asanas? We practice so we are able to sit in meditation. We have to have a strong body so we can sit still. Of course, it's the hardest to be still, to rest, to be able to find rest in stillness is like the ultimate practice of yoga in so many ways.
Welcome to a Curious Yogi podcast. I'm your host, Bobby, joined by living masters and awakening friends. We're here to illuminate your practice as we explore what it means to walk the yogi's path, unfold peace from within, and live the vision of oneness. I'm so delighted you're here. Now let's get curious. Curious Yogis, welcome back to another episode of this little podcast. For those that are new, welcome to our little corner of the internet. I am super happy to be sharing yet another wonderful, delightful, spontaneous, inspiring conversation. Wow, it's like I just love it. I love getting to do this podcast. I love getting to connect with listeners who are interested in really going deep into what yoga, meditation, spirituality really means. And hearing the diverse perspectives is just a continual inspiration for my own sadhana and my own practice. So, kicking off this episode with a lot of gratitude in my heart. And I have one quick announcement before I introduce this week's delightful guest. And that is we are dropping registration for our Norway retreat, which is happening in September 2026. Registration is opening in the next 10 days. So if you want to come get that yogi cave vibe in the majestic Norwegian mountains with Simon and I for 4 days this September, make sure you are either on my Patreon page as a free or paid member or on my newsletter list. So super excited for that. And yeah, so let me introduce you to Sheila Arnell. She is a yoga teacher here in Sweden. She's also a meditation teacher, pranayam, and breathwork guide with many, many years of experience. And her work, as we talk about today, centers on women's health, embodiment, and nervous system awareness. She really bridges the ancient yogic wisdom with modern science, as well as her lived and embodied practice. Sheila is the author of a book called The Inner Seasons, Mind, Body, and Pleasure. And it's about exploring the menstrual cycle as an inner rhythm to listen to honor, and collaborate with. And she did let me know in the episode that the book is soon to be released in English. And she has studied extensively through the Yoga Education College and continues to share practices of pranayama, mantra, asana, and yoga. She is the co-founder of the yoga school Inraskolen in Sweden. My terrible Swedish there. So in this episode, Sheila and I talk about her transformative journey, emphasizing the importance of understanding women's health and the menstrual cycle in practice. And I love this topic. I've never talked about it on the podcast, which is crazy, but it's whether you're a man or a woman, you're going to need to listen to this episode. She discusses her transition from a physically focused practice to a more spiritual and holistic approach, highlighting the significance of listening to the body and respecting its natural rhythms. Sheila also addresses the challenges women face in yoga and the misunderstandings and just like the need for education. So I just love this topic, this conversation, really, and at the essence, just talking about the practice of yoga, of being balanced and using awareness and compassion. And there's lots here. It's a jam-packed episode. I'm super excited to share it with you. So I'll stop babbling. And without further ado, here is Sheila Arnell. All right. So welcome, Sheila, to Curious Yogi Podcast.
Thank you.
It's great to have you. Finally, I feel our paths have been sort of crossing, and I had Magnus on the podcast a couple years ago, and so it's so nice to finally get to sit down and spend some time with you.
Thank you. I feel the same. I feel like mm, it's almost like a puzzle how our lives have been like corresponding to each other's, and I feel very happy to have like also found time because sometimes I find podcasts, I love podcasts like in the format of podcasts, but I also feel like I want to be fully available to also be in this format because I find it the most honest, heart opening format.
Yeah, I also agree. It's so nice to it's so rare to have uninterrupted time with one person or, one on one. Even like when you meet a friend for a coffee or something, the phones are there, things are there, but like this concentrated platform is so nice. I totally agree. Yeah.
I use I hang out in this platform every week because I have a podcast with one of my best friends. And I also previously had a meditation podcast. So this is, I think, or for me personally, this is my favorite space because it's very, exactly as you said, like ekagrata, like one pointed focus, which is
Mhm.
beautiful and rare.
Yes, definitely. Okay, already now I'm like, there's so much I want to ask you about because I also feel like, sometimes on the podcast, like there is value in going back and hearing your story and things, but I'm kind of curious with like where you are right now. I know, like I saw on social media, like you're sort of switching the way that you're
Mm.
teaching, how you're offering. Like, where are you in your practice right now? What are you focusing on? What's important to you in your yoga practice and your spiritual practice?
Wow, the biggest question. Well, this has been and is the journey. And I find that there's no point in really trying to be too attached because I have been too attached at many times in my life. And I struggle with letting go as a concept and on the mat and off the mat and in life and the controlling of the world as we know it or as we actually don't know it, the illusion. So for so long since I found yoga, it's been leading me to so many different, like very important passages in my life where when I started with yoga, and that was like 14 years ago, it just helped me connect to my body. Like, first of all, my physical body, like the body I live in, the food body at the moment. And that was such a big revelation. That was like total heart opening experience because I had in my life never even felt my body truly. And that led me into yoga as a very physical form and a connection to like my mind and my body and the first time ever the feeling of actually the ability to rest. That in turn led me like into Ashtanga yoga and into a lot of the fixation of the form. And I met a few years after that Magnus, and like my life completely became almost, actually, to be honest, like an obsession with yoga. Like I canceled meetings and I ran to yoga. I put in fake meetings in my work calendar, which were all just like yoga. I just went to studios and I was so, and I cried. I cried for in the sun salutations, not like a little tear, like a big cry, which made it quite dangerous, sun salutation A with no vision. Um,
Yeah.
it was horrible, but it was also so beautiful. And then in Ashtanga yoga later, like my hips in I remember first time I did Badakonasana like with a cyst from my teacher, and I just cried. And she's like, "Does it hurt?" No, no. It's just like the connection, coming back into the body. Then after a while, like the practice has changed so many times for me, and the spiritual practice. was my biggest resistance. Like, I remember a few years ago, I was on a podcast and a girl asked me, she's like, "So tell me about your spirituality." And I'm like, "No, I'm not spiritual. I just like my body and my soul and my breath and my mind and my yoga." And she's like, "So that is also a spiritual practice?" I'm like, "No." So I had so much resistance to like bringing the practice of yoga from out of the physical body into something more. And then it's been after that, it was a long transition of like surrendering to Ishvara, like to something bigger, which led me into practicing in a new way, into the bhakti way, into the devotional way. And it led me into mantra and chanting and playing, the harmony or harmonium. And that was also like, the biggest revelation because I felt like, wow, this is yoga now. Like singing. I was completely blown away. The struggle with after a few years into the practice, I got very deep into women's health. And I wrote a book in Sweden called The Inner Seasons about the menstrual cycle and our hormones and the female body and how it works. And also how it works so like emotionally and spiritually, to be honest, now I can say that. Um, and how a woman can view her practice and the different stages and seasons, both like external climates wise in the actual seasons of a year, but also the inner seasons, and how this together creates this amazing dance, but also kind of a lot of confusion. And how when you practice, say, a practice as Ashtanga yoga, how this can become quite complicated if we don't start working with the body. Yoga is traditionally also taught, one to one, based on me in my form now and not my perceived idea of the form. But society and like how we view being in like a doing mode is the actual opposite. And there's very little knowledge and little understanding of like what actually happens to the woman in the different stages and how this feels different. Like in luteal phase, you will feel stiffer in your body. This is how it is. And like in luteal phase, we will have tougher to do long kumbakas because breath retention, because we are carbon dioxide intolerant. Like this is
Interesting.
science. Um, this is such a long answer. I'm sorry. But the conclusion is that today I feel like my practice can be so wide, so expansive, so inclusive. Before, my practice was much more mm, held in, or like much more restrained. And I was much more in my head than in my actual physical body.
Hmm.
Oh, yeah, that is.
Wow. No, it's a great answer because there's so much there. I'm like, "Oh, I want to ask more about that and more about that and more about that." But just like thinking back to, when you sort of spoke about this transition, if you will, when you went from having this more restricted, held physical practice, which I think many people do, when we think of the asana practice
Mm,
as this kind of doorway
mm,
into the deeper aspects. I'm just wondering, like, in your experience, did you have like a certain moment or experience that really pushed you or led you rather into that more connection with the spirit or connecting with the deeper aspects of yoga, whether you're chanting or practicing or writing your book about women's hormone health, like
mm.
to like that sort of like wedge that the spiritual perspective gets, and then it's
Yeah.
sort of like,
The
did you
cry, it
have
was yeah. Yes, it was a cry. It was, so can I tell you like my little idea, like my story about this? My injuries are always around my rib cage. So I got injured twice in yoga, and the both of the times were very quite bad, but very opening, like not only physically, but emotionally, spiritually, because I got so injured I could not do asanas properly. So the first time I broke 3 ribs on my backside. So I couldn't lift my arms because I couldn't breathe that well. And it took ribs have to like mend or heal by themselves. So that
Which
was like
postures were you doing to break 3 ribs? That's
no,
crazy.
yeah, that was just the first time was just a fall.
Okay.
A very but the yoga injury was that I was doing what is it? A Dvipada second series Ashtanga yoga where you put one leg, 2 legs behind the head, and you push into your hands and you lift your bum up with the legs behind the head. And then my rib popped from my sternum.
Oh
Like
my gosh, crazy.
crazy pop. And it was my I got injured because I was pushed. To be very honest, I told my teacher that I didn't want to do it because I felt like my body was not up for it today. And she said, "You don't want to because you're scared." And I said, "No, I don't want to because I don't feel I can today." And she said, "Let's just try. Let's just get on with it." And then I said, "No." And then I said, "Okay, let's just do it." Because I felt like, fine, she's my teacher. She's been my teacher so long. I have full respect. Maybe I'm actually limiting myself.
Hmm.
And I tried and it popped. And it popped like very badly. So I couldn't lift my arms and I was like super afraid. And it caused a big trauma in my body as well. So my body responded with a complete shutdown. And I got scared and I was really afraid of any hands-on assists and I was really afraid of the practice. And so the first time I injured my back with my ribs, it led me to meditation, to a
Hmm.
seated still practice, pranayama, meditation and pranayama. And the second time it led me to actually allowing myself to think the thought that maybe Ashtanga yoga isn't for me every day. Because that was like, I felt that I was a bad yogi. I felt that I was a bad Ashtanga student. I felt that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't fit in. I almost like kind of tear up because I know as well so many of my students. So this caused a great conflict in me. And I was also a teacher of Ashtanga at the time. And when I got so hurt, and I also put the dots together, like, no, it was very scary. I just have to. My friend is giving me the charger. I'm just gonna put it
Yeah,
in
yeah,
because
no worries.
otherwise this will be.
No worries.
I don't know. Thank you. Just bring it. Um, no, but so I no, but I was a teacher of Ashtanga yoga at the time, and I felt that to be honest, I have never said this in a podcast, but I felt that I was a hypocrite.
Hmm.
I felt that I was teaching people stuff and preaching like something that I didn't believe in or that I felt didn't resonate anymore. And I felt bad about it. And then I quit. So I quit doing Ashtanga altogether. I quit teaching this form or the method um, until I could reframe it. So the reframe was practice bhakti. Practice it bhakti way. Practice it with love and devotion to your body, to your mind, to your soul. Because, like, physically, it's a beautiful practice. But I feel that it doesn't really fit women in general, like that cycle. So that was
Yeah,
like a really big thing for me, to be honest.
because that was actually gonna be my next question, was like when you like have, researched your book and obviously your own experience of women in yoga and like how a practice like Ashtanga as well, how does that like even relate to like a woman's body and like a woman's cycle? It's just like feels like it's just not even talked about really, like in the Ashtanga world anyways.
No, it's not. And also, to be honest, there are quite a few women who practice Ashtanga that lose their cycle So their menstrual cycle doesn't work. They their period stops arriving because they stop ovulating, because you only ovulate if your body feels safe.
Mm.
The menstruation is never late. The ovulation could be late at times. I find we don't talk about it because I don't really think that it's ever been introduced as, something we should talk about. Although in yoga practice, and if you practice Mysore style Ashtanga yoga in a very devotional way, then you do rest. You should be resting on moon days. You should be resting the first 3 days of your period. But we need strong women to inspire the rest, because the rest is frowned upon, the rest is not respected. And we used to have a sequence in the Shala I practice that was a sequence for menstruation, which was a completely different sequence, which was
Hmm.
including Viparita Karani and supported Badakonasana, which was amazing. But the thing is that the problem is that we think we are going somewhere. We think that there is a goal, that we
Mm.
will reach somewhere when we practice well enough. So I would say that Ashtanga for me today is practice that I come back to at times when I feel like it. And I love the sequence, and it feels good in my body, both the first and the second series, which was what I was practicing. But the like constant continuum of coming to the mat every single day, showing up for yourself, with yourself in an identical way every day, is not relatable to our hormonal health at all. It's
Hmm.
actually the opposite.
Hmm. Like if we look at like, like you spoke a little bit about the luteal phase, like just in a general, like broad overview, like if we have the cycles, like how should the woman's practice be reflected during each part of the cycle?
Good question. Thank you. Just like for information, I think everybody should know that the first day of your cycle is the first day of the bleed. So that is like 101 in menstrual
Mm.
knowledge. But most people don't know that. So we'll just be honest. And then during the menstruation, we should be, or it's it's good to be respectful of not pushing, not going too hard, really trying to rest. I personally do not practice inversions, and you can take that quite far. Like down dog is also inversion because head is under hip. I do sometimes practice down dog, but I wouldn't go for deeper inversions. So here, I sometimes play with the idea. What would people, how would you practice if you were bleeding from your knee?
Yeah. I guess, yeah, you would take it easy. You wouldn't want
Yeah.
like, yeah, you would have a more restful period. But I'm just like kind of laughing at myself because often like I'll do like a dynamic practice on my period and then I'll go upside down and I'll think like I question like I wonder what it's like should I go upside down, but then I just do it anyways, you know? So
Yeah, I know. But it's like, I also think it's interesting because there is something in us that gets kind of, no, I want to do what I want to do. I'm not going to
mhm.
listen to that idea. But we're so weird in that way because we listen to so many other instructions. But when it comes to like slowing down, there's this like ego in us. And I think it's actually that we are not trained to be able to rest. So why do we even practice yoga? Asanas. Why do we practice asanas? We practice so we are able to sit in meditation. We practice we have to have a strong body so we can sit still. Of course, it's the hardest to be still, to rest, to be able to find rest in stillness is like the ultimate practice of yoga in so
Mm.
many ways. So yeah, I think so after like having some kind of downtime, rest time, then we come into the follicular phase. And this phase is like different for all everything is different for all, but sometimes you just feel like, wow, okay, I'm back now. Now my energy is back. And this phase is full of curiosity, full of playfulness when you are healthy, full of energy, because here estrogen will rise, and estrogen is like such a dynamic hormone that really makes you flowy. I call it almost like the most beautiful filter on your phone. Like everything gets glossy and flowy and juicy and like very nice. And everything is also so dynamic, so you can really like increase your practice, try new things, try to move in new ways. Here's a perfect option to actually like deepen or also explore any kind of physical asana practice. And here, normally, we are a bit like, we're a bit restless. So for some, it's kind of boring to do the same thing. Here, we can easily get bored because we want something fun. And then we come into ovulation. So everything is very like, if we feel very, like if we have an okay hormonal health from the beginning, we feel this energy charge and we feel like we're in the sunny side of the cycle, and we feel held and we feel also confident and curious. And then when ovulation comes, then we have like this really interesting thing, because for some ovulation is like highlight. Superwoman, hello, I own this world. But it's a very extrovert phase. So sometimes we can go a little too much over the top here. But here is a perfect time for very, very vigorous practice. Like also a good time for a lot of breath work, pranayam. Also quite intense pranayam works here. But the problem is that we get a bit over ourselves, and with the society and everything as well, I want to also mention that it's a very important time to take grounding time. So even if you feel like queen of the fucking world, you need to ground. Because when we ground into like standing into the feet and like and arriving in our root, like really trying to get this energy down, then we have more power to like fully expand. Because otherwise we can get a little scattered. And then we've been saying yes to too many things and it gets kind of messy. And then we come into the luteal phase, and that is, I normally divide it into like when ovulation could be high summer. Luteal phase is not always just fall or autumn directly. It could be like late summer as well. So late summer is fine. You still have a lot of strength and you can still do quite an explosive practice. One day it just like hits, and that is the confusion. Because then one day you'll feel, what? Yesterday I did this amazing practice. My body responded so well. My mind, my breath, everything was perfect. But then it just hits you that now I'm super stiff. I feel tired. I feel restless. I feel like claustrophobic almost inside my body. So we're normally not aware of the hormonal swing. And that is also because of progesterone. So during the beginning, we have estrogen, which I told us about. And then during the ovulation, have a rise of testosterone, which is really the hormone that most people know about, the hormone that feels very powerful, like strong, driven, lots of muscle, all of that. And then we have the fall of those, and then a rise of progesterone. And that is really a nesting hormone. And the nesting hormone tells us to like keep it together, slow down, turn inwards. Here, Ashtanga is like the best practice because we're still super strong. And then we can be super focused, and we don't have to do new things. We don't have to be anybody else. Like we can remain here in this amazing focus. But then a lot of us have issues. So we have hormonal health issues, which is also a really big thing. I think we should stop normalizing PMS. We should stop normalizing having painful bleeds or having no bleeds, because this is not normal. So when we are in a hormonal imbalance, then we get the mood swings, the bloating, the feeling of being super tired, the feeling of being a little aggressive, and all of that. And those things happen also in the luteal phase, which makes this phase kind of rocky, like kind of not that popular. But it's a really cool phase where we get stuff done, we close things, we're going into winter, bringing in all of the amazing things from the sunny side, like containing. Also super powerful. But here we can practice until we feel like we can't practice anymore. And that is the thing as well. Like we need to start to really, truly listen to our bodies because our bodies know. And we need to learn the difference between lazy and no energy. And there are so many ways to do this that are quite easy, but we never learned how.
Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Wow. Okay. So much there because it's so interesting. Like because it makes so much sense. But if one doesn't have an understanding of the phases,
Mm.
how then of course it's so natural that one woman especially would be hard on herself or feel lazy or feel inadequate or these kinds of things.
Mm.
But when you say like we haven't been taught how, and then it's like, okay, for those that are listening that aren't Swedish, that can't read your book, like if we were to say, like, from your experience, like, what are the tools and the ways that we can use yoga to listen to the body rather than use yoga to, like, override the body with our minds? How can we have that soft distinction between I am strong and capable and I am soft and listening?
Yeah, that our we both practice for he's your teacher. I just found him and now I want him to be my teacher as well. But Stuart always says that yoga is listening. Yoga is essentially listening.
Hmm.
And I find this so beautiful and hard. I think we have to like go back a little to starting to so this is a process of like deep listening. Like there are so many ways to listen. So first of all, like who am I in this world? And what are the ideas that are placed on me?
Hmm.
Like how can I just be me without the need to do everything that I have been taught to do? And this is really the big, issue with women and men and burnout and stress and performance. And I always say this to my students like, where are you going? So that is like number one. So, what is mine and what is just like placed on me? And then then we have to learn to also feel the variation and the fluctuation of our energy. And how can we do that if we always do the same thing? Like if we drink a lot of coffee all day long, then it will be very hard to hear your own natural energy.
Hmm.
So I think a lot of the listening is about not doing instead of doing. I hate the idea of morning routines and daily routines and stuff like that because essentially we don't need to do anything more. We need to do less. But I think that maybe this is the process. Like there is no quick fix to learning to listen to your body and your mind and your soul. And I feel that I always learn. Like I'm
Hmm.
learning about myself every single day.
Hmm.
Sometimes things just come up and I get so provoked or I get so annoyed or sad and like I don't know where that came from. So then I try to sit with myself and be like, where did that come from? And sometimes I get it, and most of the time I don't. But also tracking your cycle. So learning to understand that there is actually a chemical balance in your body that will affect you. So estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone also. LH, like luteal inducive hormone, and FSH, follicular stimulating hormone. Those 5 hormones do affect your mind, the way you think, the way you perceive the world. So basically, we are wearing so many different colored, like, sunglasses. Sometimes we'll see the world pink. Why? Because estrogen is there. But we just need to start, like, understanding this and tracking our cycle. And then we'll see. Because, like, I think I'm so unique, but I'm not. Like, I basically feel the same way on the 22nd day of my cycle every single month. It
Hmm.
doesn't matter what happened during the month. It's also chemistry, it's also physiology. And I find this humbling as well, and
Mm-hmm.
calming.
Yeah, it's like so interesting because, we live in a world and we're all sort of products of our environment, like you said, like what has been put on me. But like what's continually being put on us is to like you said, do more, be better, fix
Mm,
this, fix that. And it also is like a part of yoga. It's like letting go of that idea or that sense of control, like
yeah,
the illusion of control. Like, yes, of course, there is much in our control and we have free will, but the sort of surrendering to the beautiful ebb and flow that we can wear 4 or 5 different glasses every month as women. And it's like, rather than like fight it to fit in like a
yeah.
box, the
No.
the profoundness of just going with it is like, it's so simple and beautiful. It makes so much sense, but it's going against
So
like the
hard as
world.
well. Yes. And, like, I usually start when I lecture, I usually start and I say, women are not small men. Let's, like, start there. Women are not small men or big men. I don't know how the size of the man, but we are not men.
Mm.
Nothing in this world is made for us. Like, our understanding of the world is made from a man's perspective, including yoga, especially yoga. I was going to say not especially yoga, but like I'm also a student of Eddie Stern, and we were talking about the history and origin of different yoga philosophy and different trails of yoga. And there were all of these men, and we struggled to find the women. And of course, there are a few women, and there are so powerful women. And there's also you can also find roots going back to that. This is a practice for women as well. Of course, there's always a way to trace it back to women in some way. But essentially, what many of us perceive as yoga today is really from men. And I think it's fine. I think I have made peace with the way it is and how I respect and honor that.
Hmm.
But I can practice those teachings, but also from a perspective of being a woman. And I try to teach in that way.
Hmm.
Um, but essentially, it all comes down to the practitioner also wanting to view the practice from this lens. But I also kind of get provoked when when I say this, because one part of me also just wants to say, like, it's insane to miss the idea that you are a woman, that I do not respect this. Like, one part of me gets very angry, because we spend so much time, like, respecting the breaths. Like, nobody is really, we understand we breathe in and we breathe out. Like, we know this. And we also respect, say, the moon, because the moon affects all water. But we should also, and we respect that there is daytime and that there is nighttime and that there is spring and there is summer and winter and so on. But in the same way, we should be respecting that the women have an infradian rhythm. It's called an infradian rhythm. So we have the circadian rhythm, we have the yearly rhythm, and we have the infradian rhythm. And of course, we will get sick if we don't listen to one of the most natural rhythms of life. So I just also, like, I want to normalize this and make this into something powerful, simple, beautiful, and uh, totally like non-negotiable.
Mm.
Because I find it so weird.
Yeah.
How are we as a collective like ignoring the fact that we're made of other things than men?
And also not like taught it from a young age, or even
No.
like if we go back to like looking at it from the lens of yoga, like not very many yoga teacher trainings. Like I did mine in India with all Indian teachers, and nobody mentioned anything about the menstrual cycle to the 22 women and 3 men in the group. You know what I mean? It's just like it's so interesting that it's such a like if even like studying physiology and things like when studying yoga, that it's sort of just like looked at as like the human, but
Mm.
like the human being the man.
Yeah,
And then the
exactly. That is the human. And then we are all the practitioners now. We're just like not fitting into the map of the man. And I find this is like the problem because we try to fit in and
hmm,
we try to be we want to be as they are, but we cannot because we are not. And this will
yeah.
cause eventually illness.
Hmm.
So back to like my first long ago story about that I always break around the rib cage. I feel like my this is not in any way grounded in any science what I'm going to say now. But I feel like I grow out of my form. Like I physically injure myself because that's the only way my head understands that I am new now.
Hmm.
I get too big for my body. I expand, which now that
That's
I've like
beautiful. That's a
framed it that,
beautiful
yeah,
expression.
thank you. No, it's crazy. And actually, it's fun because we are changing the world now. And I think that just this podcast is one of many amazing things that will actually maybe open up for this chain of thought, actually also kind of
Hmm.
very much of a science. But my teacher Eddie Stern, he allowed me now to actually do a course on yoga and women's health. So Yoga Education College, which he has along with two other teachers, we are offering this now as an online training for teachers, which I feel like, wow, this is really, I'm so happy and proud because we need to learn and teach so we can help and spread and also just open this as an idea. Because
Hmm.
I don't think people like don't want to know this, or it's just that we've never heard or never been told or never been taught.
That's amazing that you're gonna offer that at the yoga college. What do you like? Just like looking at the broad sort of picture of like modern postural yoga right now. Why is it, do you think, that there's so many women practitioners in Western countries and and so fewer men? It's so
Mm.
interesting. Like it's such an interesting dichotomy when you like look at it. Like, just do you have any thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, I also find this very interesting. I think it's also, I think practice of yoga requires some kind of like, I want to say grace and resilience, but I find that we need to understand first and foremost that yoga was really like postural yoga is really considered, a physical workout initially. It came to the States as power yoga. Do you remember? And then it spread as power yoga because, got sweaty and it changed the physical body. But maybe the idea that it's, a little feminine because there are no like weights. It's all body weights. It's all like quiet practice with the breath in focus. And also like maybe just the idea that there were also quite a lot of men leading it. And it's there the idea as well to going to practice yoga is a lot about the relation to the teacher.
Hmm.
And maybe it was more available for women to like embrace a man as their teacher than a man to embrace a man as their teacher. Um, but I think yoga is, I'm very sick of yoga in the way that it's kind of untouchable and it's a little elitey, I think.
Mm.
Um, and it's so posh. It's expensive sport with like a lot of fancy tights, super cool buildings. And most of the people who are drawn to yoga, at least from my perspective, have some kind of natural ease for it. So you go often, lots of gymnasts or dancers or previous, people who have been using their body and are quite flexible come to yoga. And when we show all the asanas in the postural way, where we see pictures of people in like knots, of course, it scares away people who are already kind of feeling stiff or not there. And men in general have a different physical form than women here.
Hmm.
So I don't know, but I do feel like we need to bring we need to bring yoga back to the people, to all
Yes,
people.
I agree. It is sort of unaccessible when it's meant to be accessible to all who need it. And not only people that are drawn to it for the physical, but also those that are drawn to it because it does touch something deeper inside. And
But once they're in, they're in. Like I feel that is always, I just always try to get people into the like I'm just come to my room. As soon as I get them in, I'm like they're here to stay. But
yeah.
it's the getting them through the door thing that is, kind of
Hmm.
tough because they have a lot of people have a lot of ideas as well. I mean, I did Thai. I don't know. It's called Thai boxing, Thai box.
Hmm.
I don't know, uh,
Boxing. Yeah.
boxing the other day, and I was like, I was filled with judgment about this sport, and it was a revelation. I loved it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I guess it's like lots of ideas about everything. And if people are meant to come to it, whether they're a man or a woman, they come through the door. And then I think it is just important for those that are listening and for people like myself who are teaching yoga to be like more educated about like all that we've talked about in terms
Mm,
of like awareness of the woman and the
mm,
physiology and the differences. So we know that when we because we learn as teachers to teach like this type of body or that type of body, but that also includes like a male body or a woman body. Like it's just about building that awareness for ourselves as
mm,
practitioners who are honing our own craft and also then so we can embody it and then also understand how to teach it safely. If you go back to
mm,
like you getting your injury, it's like that also is helpful
mm.
information to have about like assisting or touching or being with students who are alive human beings with different hormones and physiology. So it's super inspiring. I'm like very lit up. You got to get your
Good.
book. You got to get your book in English translation.
It is coming.
Okay, good.
They just told me, so I'm so happy about that. It will be in English too. Um,
Congrats. That's great.
Thank you. No, but I love the way you also. I love that it touches you, and I do think that for teachers listening and all listening, like you don't need to know that much to start to talk about it. You just need to introduce the idea. Like I do facilitator trainings to help my students teach this to others because I do believe that we need to like just start talking about it.
Mm.
And like just as a teacher just introducing, you know, that sometimes we do get hurt. Sometimes we do feel like tired. Sometimes we are actually affected by our menstrual cycle. Surprise.
Mhm.
During the days and like just coming back to sharing from own experience is basically key because I always tell I've done a lot of I teach teachers, so I do teacher trainings. And I always just say, like, teach where you practice. Like, just teach what you practice, you're fine.
Hmm.
So just trying to embody and really be with yourself, and the knowledge and the understanding that you gain from just being with yourself, that is perfect to share. In,
Hmm.
of course, a suitable manner, but really being human and sharing from that heart space is what touches others.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. Yeah, it is true that the more that we practice and embody and learn for ourselves, then the sharing is the teaching. It's becomes more effortless, which is why it's so inspiring to like talk to people like you and like learn new perspectives or to hear the passion of someone else that then like lights something up within myself. That's why I love to do this podcast because it's like
Mm,
it's so great to hear like how inspired you are, how lit up you are about this, and
mm.
even like how fired up and angry you get too, because
Yes.
that's like it's all this like amazing pathway for us to like enlighten and like maybe we don't break our ribs, we grow that much, but to grow and expand from like that place from within, and when it comes from like in the heart, then it's like
Mm.
that's the real growth.
It
So I
is.
love that.
And also, one of my teachers, when I started practicing, she had this really cute little magnet on the door to the shala. And it said, one step forward, two steps back. Life is like a cha-cha. And I always saw that, and I was like, yes. And like the practice is like a cha-cha. Everything is like, it goes a little forward, it goes a little
Yes.
backward. And maybe
Yeah.
this is the practice. This is life. This is the learning. The learning is not like what there is at the end of the rainbow. Like, who cares about the end of the rainbow? The rainbow moves all the time. So really learning to be in what is at the moment and making peace with the practice today and not comparing it with the practice yesterday, and definitely not like waiting for the practice tomorrow.
Mhm.
It should be, or like, I truly believe that the wisdom is found in the practice today.
Mhm. Yeah, and even going back to like what you said at the very, very beginning about the challenge of letting go and like letting
Mm,
go of all those expectations and impressions that we have, and just to be present moment to
mm,
moment. And that's like the sort of superpower of the yoga practitioner, but also like the greatest challenge, which is why it's amazing to know we're like kind of all in it
mm,
together.
mm.
And like that there's this sort of the target, but we're just going step by step, like my
Yeah.
teacher in India, he said, like you don't go up the flag or the signpost, you go in the direction that it's pointing. Or he said like
Wow.
don't look at my finger, go in the direction that I'm pointing. And
Mm,
it just kind of makes me think like, yeah, you just keep going one step forward. And then, like you said, sometimes it's two steps back, but that's also kind of a joy. Like,
right.
even just like, I'm still like sort of fascinated about your ribs, that like even breaking one's ribs, there's like a revelation in that, and that's a gift.
And it's interesting because I was, the other day I was teaching. So today I teach like, I teach, I don't know what I teach. I teach some kind hatha yoga, I don't know. I teach stuff I've learned. I don't really call it too much. If it's not Jiva Mukti, then I have to call it Jiva Mukti because,
Yeah.
Jiva Mukti,
Yeah.
please.
TM. Yeah.
But so actually, I'm doing a class on Saturday, and I hope they don't see it because I called it spiritual warrior ish.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I hope they don't see it either, but it
No,
sounds amazing.
yeah, so I can be free. No, but I was talking to my students the other day about drishti, and it's so fun because they don't want to look up. They're like not looking up. They're like not using drishti. It's never used. And I'm like, why are you guys hating drishti? Like, can we talk about this? And they taught me that they don't know why.
Hmm.
That's why they're not using it, because I haven't told them why. And then we practice using drishti in Matsyendrasana, specific rotation, just normal rotation. Like just twisting, and then twisting with the intention that drishti will actually like help you to overcome the physical structure that you are limited by. And we do this the same thing in pranayama, that if you only think you are your chest, of course you will be limited. But if you instead breathe up in between your eyebrows and you just like fill up, 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 all the way to up the ceiling, all the way up, 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 then you are limitless. And that is basically what I want people to bring from this conversation, that the idea of actually working with the menstrual cycle or understanding yourself as a cyclical being, a woman with hormones, with fluctuations, is basically being limitless. So you are taking away the box, Bobby, that you were talking about, and instead allowing yourself to be fully yourself in all different setups.
Beautiful. Well, that's perfect because to end the conversation, I asked these like 3 last questions. And the one question is to sum up this conversation. And I feel like you just did that. So, yeah.
Yay!
We just summed that up, that like how to sort of be limitless, and as a woman or as a human and or as a yogi, whatever you call
Mm.
yourself, like what is that experience of limitless? So I love that. And the other 2 questions I ask, the first one is, which I have a feeling what you'll answer, but at this point in your practice, or we can say in
Mm.
your life, what are you still curious about?
Is this the one you think you know what I'm
Well,
gonna answer?
I just feel like you're so curious or passionate. I guess you're passionate about like this. I don't know what you're gonna answer actually.
No, but I am passionate, of course. I like female health, of course,
Yeah.
of course. But for me, like personally, I am very at the moment. I am very passionate about the idea um of being free in a form. Because right, I struggle myself sometimes with the instruction that there is no instruction, like exploding. Or I do a lot of active meditations at the moment, and dancing, free dancing, and I'm very interested. I love this, and it really shows me so many different sides of myself that I didn't know. Like,
Mm,
who am I if I can be totally free? Because
mm,
this is hard and scary, and I'm like, in the beginning I was like, how am I supposed to dance? And then I'm
mm,
like, if I can dance in any way I like, how will I dance?
mm.
So I'm very curious about like exploring me.
Beautiful. That's a beautiful answer. I feel that also is like the great questions of the yogis, like Ramana Maharishi. Like the biggest
Yes.
question we can ask
Mm,
ourselves is, who am I? And that's like the deepest question. So that's beautiful. And then the last
thank
one
you.
is, if you can, I mean, you gave a great little saying there with your fridge magnet, the cha-cha practice. But one, like if you have a great saying or mahavakya, like this great saying that you sort of stick with you, or that you say or you heard somewhere from your teacher, like a kind of great one-liner to leave us with.
God. In Swedish we have a word called lagom.
Yeah.
Lagom is like the perfect middle. It's like between. No, it's very hard to. It's like all of the other like word specific cultural things, but I do teach a lot of lagom, which means staying in the middle. Like, don't go. It's a little, if you want to do the, like all the yoga teachers, the Stirasuka asana is like staying at ease and grace and still using stability and strength, blah, blah, blah. And they put it into posture yoga, which I don't really agree with too much. But it's a bit like that, being exploring practice, the mind, the body, but not to the extent that you overpush. and not
Mm-hmm.
to the extent that you don't push at all.
Mm.
So
I'm so
staying in the
glad
middle.
that you said this because Lagom was one of the first words I learned, obviously, like coming to Sweden. And I started using it in the class. And then
Yeah.
and I was using it quite a bit because I was saying like Lagom, like it's like the kind of Goldilocks, like
Yes, yes,
just not too hot, not too cold. And it
yeah,
made so much sense. And then one Swedish student, she kind of like turned me off from it. 'Cause she's like, I don't know if you can really use Lagom in yoga. It's like, and then I was like,
yes.
but I can. But you gave me the permission to bring Lagom back
Please.
into my
I
classes.
love Lagom. And Lagom is also, for a lot of Swedes, it could be actually translated into perfect, like the perfect middle.
Yeah,
And that is really beautiful to be like centered
amazing.
in both efforts and ease, which is really beautiful. So yes, bring
Great.
Lagom back.
Great. I've got so much from this conversation about my female
Mm.
menstrual health and my cycle, and that I got Lagom back. Thank you so much, Sheila. It's been
Thank
super
you.
wonderful. And hopefully, we'll get to see you soon, either in Stockholm or Malmo or somewhere else. And
Yes,
just, yeah, really appreciate you taking the time. I know you're busy, and just been super fun to get to know you a little bit.
this was so nice. Thank you so much. I love this conversation, Bobby, and I love your podcast in general. I have been listening to it. So I
Amazing.
hope I'll share this. So I hope more will listen and we can change the world together.
Thanks for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed what you heard, please consider supporting the show at patreon.com/acuriousyogi podcast. And please leave a review. It really helps the show reach more people. Let's stay curious, connected, and keep walking the path together. In total delight, this is Bobby signing off until next time.